And if you just take a look at your life, you're 30 years younger than I am, So if you just take
I am more than 30 years younger than you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. I'm not 35.
I think the lighting's bad. Speaking of something tragic, let's talk about suicide.
Okay.
What's amazing to me is there's no question in my mind that suicide is super tragic, and I think that a lot of this, or maybe some, but it doesn't have to be. But why is it that, and I'm going to go maybe out on a limb, but not too far. Why is it that most all of us think about offing ourselves in our life?
At one point in our lives?
Yeah, and it gets to that point. And I'm that person, I had a time in my life where things were just really dark, obviously. And I actually thought about driving a car off a cliff, and I thought, I can't even believe I was thinking those thoughts. And for someone to follow through with something like that, it's so hard to imagine being there. I mean, obviously you're not being rational in any way, because a rational person would say, how can you do that? Because a part of me knows that even though I thought about running a car off the cliff, I knew in my heart of hearts that I wouldn't do that. But it just seemed like the better option because I was in a lot of pain, obviously, So has anything like that happened to you?
Well, I will say this. I was one of those people that was like, how could somebody do that? Like, how could you get to that point? Like, how can you be that weak in your head? Until I got to a point like that a long, long time ago. And then I realized that I think you can get to that point when you know that the pain of death or even like doing it to yourself would be less painful than the pain that you're feeling at that moment. I think that's when I crossed that line of like, I actually could have did it. But
what was going to be your method, your choice of offering yourself?
I think, at the moment when I thought about it, I just kind of thought about like slicing my wrist.
Ooh, that's violent shit.
I know, but that's what I mean is like, I think like when it crossed my mind, I just felt like that pain would not be as much. The pain I was going through in my head was way worse than the pain that would have felt like it. I wouldn't have felt it.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it was at that level. And when I realized that I was at that level, that scared me because I was like, I'm at that point.
Yeah.
But I was pregnant. So there was no way I was going to do it because I had a baby. One, I had a baby in me. And two, once that baby wasn't in me anymore, I was going to be a mom. So there's no way I could do it. But if I wouldn't have had him in me and I would have been at that moment, I'm pretty sure I would have followed through with it.
Wow. That's pretty heavy. And yet I forget who it was, but there was I think it was a lady. I don't know if she's in design, like in fashion or music industry or whatever, but she actually offered herself and she had kids. And I'm thinking, how can you possibly do that?
Different. She must have just felt it at a whole different level than I did.
Well, I mean, obviously when you get to that point, you're not rational in any way, but it's incredible that no one could talk her down from that,
I mean, maybe she felt her kids were, I mean, I would only think like the only things that could possibly be doing that is like maybe she felt the kids were better off without her. Maybe she felt like she was toxic to them.
No,
but her existence was like not benefiting them. It'd be better with them, like with her out of their lives.
But even to think that,
like that, yeah,
especially as a mother,
dark and sad.
Especially
sad that you have to get to that point
as a mother. Yeah, no kidding. But this is kind of like our podcast. We've talked about this early on. Life is like a fishbowl. Okay, we're in this big ass aquarium, fishbowl. Call it what you want to. And there are a lot of distractions out there. And I kind of see it. The metaphor I use in Fishbowl is that you're in Fishbowl, and Fishbowl is a big highway. And then the paths that you go down, I call them exits. Which exit are you going to go down? because every exit that you go off has a consequence to it,
Mhm.
where you end up, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just, and what I've learned through my life is that, and this is not uncommon. Look, well, life is always, it's a huge test, and you will be tested. All of us are going to be tested. And it's just how do you handle that test? And I tell you something, I don't know. I've been lucky. I mean, my biggest test for me has been dealing with the loss of my grandbabies just before they were going to be born, the twins. Believe it or not, going through a divorce, even though my wife at the time thought I was, I didn't feel any pain, but inside it was fucking awful,
Mhm.
and then the strokes that I had. I mean, I'm just, and I'm not talking about this like in any way to get any kind of sympathy. It's just, that's not the point. It's just that we're all going to go through stuff, and I just can't believe when people deal with, so there's so much tragedy that they deal with, and yet there's people out there that overcome that, and people that just succumb to a lot less.
Yeah.
And you wonder what makes that person so much different. Is it like they make a choice to go down a different pathway, good or bad, and the exits? I don't know, but that's our life. It's Fishbowl. It's going down the highway, and sometimes the highways, you're going 80 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you go off an exit and you hit a bunch of potholes, but that's just kind of the way it is. And I just think that what we have to do as individuals, and what I have tried to do, is put myself in a spot where I ask the question. I always think that you have to have a stated goal, and the stated goal of anything that you do in life. So you have to ask questions, I think,
Mhm.
what do I want? What do I want from this in this moment that I'm in? And how can I get out? Those are just questions to ask, right? And I think at the end of the day, what happens is through our life, you have to keep reinventing yourself, because change is a constant. And if you just take a look at your life, you're 30 years younger than I am, So if you just take
I am more than 30 years younger than you.
Ooh, sorry.
Thank you very much. I'm not
I
35.
think the lighting's bad.
How old are you? 65?
No, 66, damn it.
Oh, you're 66?
Not really.
No, you're 65. You're about to be 66.
Got 2 weeks.
Okay, I'm not 35. I'm not even close to that. Take that back.
Hit a nerve.
I'm 36 years younger than you.
If I move back, maybe I can see the difference.
Okay, point being.
Okay. So in your life, I mean, just take a look at your life, for example, how much you already, and we've talked about this a little bit on other shows, but how much you already been faced with these, obstacles where you had to take these crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
And how have you, when you look at like maybe, because I think that learning how to deal with adversity or these crossroads, because it's kind of like raising a kid. There's no book on how to raise the child properly. And I think there's no real road how to handle your own crossroad. So how do you compare like the crossroads that you went through maybe now later on in your life compared to like when you first went through a crossroad? I mean, how did you handle it? Have you learned from it? And what did that look like? Because as you have another crossroad, are you using some of the information from back here to get you through this new crossroad?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think if anything, when I think about it, any crossroads I face now, I know that I've overcome the biggest crossroad, that I'm like, okay, this is just enough. Like, this is easy compared to what you've already done.
Mm-hmm.
So you're strong enough for that. Like, I've created the person that I am. I've created the strength in my brain that I have. So when I hit those crossroads, it's just like, okay, pull deep, reach out, get it, and just pull it back out.
Yeah. So I think the lesson right there is that when you go through stuff, try to find stuff that you can learn from to use going forward. Mm-hmm. And you cross that over to bodybuilding or to training, because that's what we do. We go through this training because you don't know the exercises, for example, that are going to make you bigger or stronger, whatever the stated goal is. But you end up,
it's okay, you keep going.
You end up looking back so you can move forward. You find the stuff that works for you to some degree, and the rest of that shit, you got to let it go. And I think what happens with a lot of people, they don't let it go. that stuff. It keeps coming with them.
Mhm.
Even though they may learn something, they don't let that other shit go, because you know what? It's hard to let go of some of that stuff.
Yeah, it is. I think for me, it took me like a good, maybe like 5 years to let go of some stuff. And then I think like 6 years for me to like really start to love myself. And then 7 years for me to just really be like, oh, I'm completely happy again. I think it's taken me 7 years to be completely happy from my first real big crossroad.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time.
Do you freak out about like, okay, I'm in a spot right now? Because I do. Do you freak out like things are going pretty good in my fishbowl? It's like, okay, what's going to drop next?
No, I
do.
don't. I don't do that. But now I feel like I will, because I just started being like really, really happy. And then, yeah, I've noticed something does come, and then I'm like really good. And then something else comes. And now I'm starting to catch on to the freaking habit. And I'm like, oh, I wasn't aware that that was what happens.
Yeah. Here's what I've learned, you know, and I tell Jose in the gym, you know, when he's got sales are going really good, you know, I said, don't get cocky.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I've handled, like, okay, things are going good now. Okay, you should rejoice in that, you know, compartmentalize that and say, it's going good. Okay. There's some things that I'm doing right. There's some things that you know, I've made changes. They're going good, but I'm not going to get cocky and think like, okay, I got this shit. Because that's when you get like humbled and checked, it seems like. So when things are going good for me, the way I look at this now, even though I freak out, I don't freak out like I used to. That's just my signal to say, keep your fucking nose to the grind. Okay. Don't get crazy out there and think you're above the law and think that shit won't happen to you, because it will.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seems like to me. So I think I use that now. I use that alert not to destroy me and go, oh, shit, I'm all sad because I can't even be happy that I'm in the spot right now. And that's not fair. You know, you have to enjoy the moments along the way.
Yeah.
And when you conquer and overcome, you should pat yourself on the back, but just don't live there, you know, too long and lose yourself, type of thing. That's how I've sort of handled my shit. And you know what? And here's the thing. I'm almost 66 years of age. I haven't got it figured out. I do not, you know, but I have learned lessons along the way. And
your whole compartmentalized thing that you taught me, that's always been a big thing for me. Like even in situations that are sad, then I do the whole, okay, give yourself a minute to feel the pain, be sad, cry if you need to, but then put it away and move on.
Yeah.
Like your compartmentalized things really helped me through a lot.
I think it does help, you know, because you're going to worry about that shit anyway. To tell somebody, it's kind of like when you're mad and somebody says, oh, don't be mad. You get madder, right?
Yeah, I like to encourage people to feel whatever they're going through, because their feelings are like important, and they like, what's the word I'm trying to use? Like they're validated. Your feelings are validated. So like even with Liam, when I upset him and he like wants to start crying over something super stupid, like, you know, hey, you're going to bed at 8:30 tonight because you gave me trouble with homework. And he starts crying. I'm not the type of mom that's like, stop crying.
Right. That's a kind
because
of
it's like, I understand that you are actually very sad. So, okay, have your moment, go in your room if you need, cry it out, get mad, and then come out and let's move on. You know,
pain is it's an emotion. It's important, in my opinion. It's important to deal with it, like what you're saying. Have at it. Let it be there. Feel that.
Man,
that's what makes us human.
There's a movie called Inside Out. It's a kid movie. This is actually a really good movie. I think even adults should watch this movie. It's called Inside Out, and it's about a little girl, the little character, and in her head is a control room. So it's like a room with the tables like this. It's a control table. You have joy, and then you have anger, and you have, I think, disgust, and then you have this other one that's kind of like Miss Prissy. And so they're all in there, and just life happens to this little girl, and you see how each one handles it. So, you know, dad puts some broccoli in front of her and says, eat it. And then you see disgust, and he'll grab the control and he'll be like, gross. And he pushes it away. So then she'll push it away. And then the dad will put it in front of her again. And then anger will come out because he's like, he said no. So then anger shows himself. And so it kind of keeps going back and forth with like just showing how our emotions inside of our head, we have so many, and how they react to everything that we do, and based off of like why we make decisions in our life. So in the end of the movie, you get to notice that like Joy keeps pushing sadness away because she doesn't want the little girl to be sad. So she's like, go over there. Don't touch the control table. Go over there. And she does it throughout the whole movie. But then at the end of the movie, she realizes that that's actually made the little girl go full angry and full crazy. And because she couldn't express her feelings. She couldn't feel it. She couldn't go through it, and she couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
There was no way to handle it because it wasn't coming out. She was just pushing it down.
Yeah. She was squashing it down.
Yeah. So then at the end of the movie, Joy like pulls Sadness in, and she like gives her the control of the whole control table, and Sadness just touches it, and then everything turns like sad.
Yeah.
The little girl breaks down crying. Then she tells her parents what's really wrong, and then everything gets fixed, and she's happy again.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's so true. You can't just keep going with like anger and disgust and prissy and joy. You have to like acknowledge the sadness that's there.
Yep.
Things, talk to people, communicate.
And again, I always compare things to bodybuilding in so many ways because it's similar in what you're talking about. What you're doing is the same thing as a bodybuilder. The difference between a bodybuilder who doesn't spend the extra time to work on their weak body parts because it takes so much energy to do that. And it's so much easier to just focus on the joy or the happiness and just say, I'm not going to acknowledge my weak point in bodybuilding or my weak point as a human being. Isn't that kind of the same?
Yes. And I think that's even a lot like it with nutrition. If you think about it, when it comes to fitness,
same.
It's, everybody just wants to do like come into the gym and have fun and train and lift and happy and this, but then the whole dieting and the not so happy because you are not happy when you're dieting. I don't care who says what. Some part of you is going to be hungry and want to go off of it.
Yeah.
And so who wants to put themselves in that situation?
No, it's a basic human tool that we have to learn. So, now as I'm talking to you, I start thinking, okay, maybe it's a smart idea to start teaching our kids this at a younger age. I don't know how old should be. Sometimes I think trying to have kids do things too early. For example, some of these parents that get their kids into sports and multi-sports and have them doing all kinds of shit at a very young age. I don't think that's the best thing to do. And I'm big into athletics, and but maybe it would be a good idea to take those emotions, the things that we're talking about, which is just going to impact you in your life, no matter what. We know that. And start working on those kinds of things, as they're younger, and teach them that you don't always have to take the path of least resistance. It's okay to take the path of that has its most difficult, and feel what that feels like, and then celebrate coming out the other side. Oh my God, we just became psychologists.
I because I've already learned all this, so I do it with Liam.
Yeah.
I think that certain parents might do it with their kids. Some who haven't really gone through it like that or think of it this way may not. But I mean, yeah, like with Liam, we watched that movie, and I explained it to him, and he got it. And so now, when he goes through things, we talk about it.
Yeah.
And, just to kind of try and make him mentally healthier.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be perfectly mentally healthy from the beginning.
Yeah, something, people in life, they're afraid of failure, but they're also afraid of succeeding. Because it lets off these emotions that we're afraid of. You're afraid of failing, and it's easier to say, look, it's just failure, and it's not really failure unless you quit. You can use all kinds of examples of why it's okay to fail, for example. And then when you get to the point where I'm having success, well, I'm afraid to succeed now. Just think about that. It's kind of like this for me in bodybuilding. Here's the difference. When I first started getting into bodybuilding, part of it was because I had gotten myself in the worst shape of my life, and when I had my buddy tell me what the hell happened, well, at that stage of the game, I didn't know how to change my body in the most efficient way. And what that did is cause me stress. And what that did is triggered me to start getting into this real extreme mode because I didn't know the tools that I needed to use. Because you see, learning those tools took time and patience and energy to learn that. It was the path that was most difficult. So I took the path of least resistance and said, well, fuck it. I just will starve myself. How many people do that?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they go through that and they realize at some point that they can't sustain that.
Yeah.
And then they go the other way. You see what I mean? I see that it's kind of similar in the way and stuff that we're talking about. And I guess it's not being afraid. And then once you learn how to get back, I've talked about this before. Once I learned the tools and I could manipulate and say, okay, now instead of that thing being in charge of controlling me, I'm controlling it. So I'm going to go ahead and let myself lose 5 or gain 5 pounds or 10 pounds, not because I'm using it as an excuse like most people do, because most people that say that are letting themselves off the hook. They're using that to make themselves feel better, but they're not really addressing the issue. When you get to that point where you can control and manipulate and produce and reproduce, all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm going to allow myself to let go for a while, ease off, because I know how to get back, and I will get back. I don't know. I just think that so much, athletics has always been a very good teacher for things that happen in the fishbowl of life. It always has, and that's why, coaches will always like somebody who's been, an athlete in multi-sports, because those sports all teach you different things, emotionally and physically. I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah. See, I wasn't into sports back then, but then coming here and then learning how to bodybuild and training like that and nutrition, all that stuff, it turned into a sport for me. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy it did, because I was not into sports. I didn't get that experience.
And the thing that you bring now to your people that you're working with, I know we're getting off here in a little bit, but that's part of the show, is now, because you've gone through some of this stuff, you can see it in your people that you're working with, and how valuable is it to somebody who's coming to you now?
Firsthand experience
there you
is the
go.
best.
That's the old Albert Einstein.
It's the best.
It is the best.
Even with like nutrition and trying to get clients to lose weight and follow plans. And then once I see them do it for once I see them start to like reach a certain weight, it's not even their goal. I just see them reaching a certain look and a certain weight. I already know that they're going to get comfortable.
Yeah.
And then I'm ahead of it.
There
It's
you
like,
go.
hey, you're going to start getting comfortable. You're going to start not wanting to do this. And
how valuable is that information to them? Because you're already telling them what to expect. And all of a sudden it's like, shit, that person knows what the hell they're talking about. Don't we want people like that around us?
Yeah.
I do. I feed off people like that. It shortens the learning curve.
Yeah.
All that has to happen, as a person that you're helping, is they have to be a part of that journey with you. And a really good someone who's a great teacher, lets that person know and weans them to the point where they can go off and be a free bird, because you don't want that person to have to rely on you or anybody else at the end of the day but themselves.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So there you have it. Look, I talked to somebody the other day. He was a rock and roller on another podcast, and the guy, he had an amazing story. He's like a lot of rock and rollers, he had this real bad dark period, left the former band, and he just didn't know where he was, ends up in jail. And he hit bottom, so low. And this is kind of human nature. We respond when we're having extreme pain or extreme
yes, I remember you saying that.
enjoyment, pleasure. And he got to that. And here's what the guy did. He made a remarkable comeback. He looks fantastic. He looks healthy. He looks well. He looks like he like beat it, really. Not just said he did, but he really did. And here's a guy in rock and roll, a rock and roller who lived that lifestyle. And he's doing something. I pointed this thing out to him. I said, look, you're doing the same thing as I did as an athlete over here. And this is how similar things are. All you did was state what you wanted as a goal. It's one thing to say, I have to get out of this hole. I don't want to be in this hole. It's another thing to state your objective. Okay. So stating the objective turns you from only looking at the problem, I'm in this hole, and most people are they just really fall into just playing this recording in their head of just the problems without coming up with a solution. And I know we've talked about this before, but it takes energy to really deal with solutions. Okay. It's like, okay, all right, I get that. I know where you're at. It's dark. What is your goal? What do you want from this? And his stated goal was the same as mine was, as it turned out, after I had my strokes 9.5 years ago. And I said to myself, like he had a good run and playing that, living that lifestyle, and it took him there. Me being in the bodybuilding lifestyle, okay, at some point I had these strokes happen. It was a wake-up call. And this is where I stated the goal. And I said, my goal from this point forward is to pay my body back for all that I did to it during those heydays. Because during the heyday, I had a hell of a good time. And so did he. And in another documentary that I saw, it was the Eagles. They said, when you're in your heyday, you're eating the apple, you're biting you're eating the fruits, and then all of a sudden the apple starts eating you. And that's when you fall into this, you've crashed, right? Stating that goal, that when I said I'm going to make myself as healthy as I possibly can, that's the goal. Stating that goal got me back to where I'm at right now. I'm not bodybuilding, but back to where I want to be. Mm-hmm. Him stating that goal got him back. And it doesn't mean that you're healed forever, because there's always challenges. Mm-hmm. And I think if you're that person that's always eager to learn, you're going to want to challenge yourself in other areas. I am. I'm not ready to get old yet. Mm-hmm. For example, there's more challenges and things I want to do, but I think it all starts with the stated goal and then following through. It's one thing to state the goal. The harder part's going to be the follow through. Because how many times do you see people, they state the goal, they have fire in their ass, and about 2 or 3 months later, where are they?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think that's all I have to talk about today. I learned that you have a damn good voice. Fuck. And if we get anybody responding to this, because I'm a competitive athlete, I hope I smoke your ass in that people are gonna vote for me, because I hear.
So we're gonna do a voting?
Well, fuck yes.
Oh,
and I'm just gonna.
I didn't even try that hard.
I'm just gonna let people know out there, just to keep in mind, because I really do think that Cara's probably gonna beat me on this. I sang that motherfucker in a foreign language.
True that.
I have to get some points for that. I hope they realize that. What else are you gonna? You got anything else to say? Bullshit about?
Nope, that's it.
Are we out?
Yeah.
Okay. I hope you're in a lot better mood next week when you come to work.
I'm all smiles right now.
Yeah, but it's fake. It's like an alligator. That fucking alligator smile. You're a killer. You're like smiling on the outside. Inside, you're ready to like chew people up and spit them out. You told me that today. I hate people. I'm pissed off. I'm gonna kill somebody. Really? And you're smiling like you are now?
Because
you're a good actress.
The light is so
You're
bright.
a good actress. Okay. Well, we're out. We out.